Live. Now, have you left the house yet in any meaningful way, Max?
Have I done what? Sorry?
Have you left the house yet in any meaningful way?
Yeah, well, here we don't have that kind of lockdown. I mean, in New Zealand, you did like the full lockdown. And here we kind of just maybe stay in our houses. And our government has showed us that that was unnecessary too. You can go anywhere you like. Our big scandal.
Like if you need to test your eyes, you could go for a drive. If you've got perhaps a private woodland, you could go for a frolic.
We've got levels of rules, and they have been revealed to anybody who thought they were being clever or patriotic by sacrificing has learnt the truth. And 80% of people,
horrific.
Yeah, it's been quite an eye-opener. But that's true in any organization, right? When you suddenly realize that at the bottom of an organization, if you're late, you're docked pay. If you're late 3 times, you lose your job. At the top of the organization, somebody can't make it for a week and they're somewhere with their mistress, then that's okay. You know, oh, look, it's totally understandable. He's under a lot of stress. So, yeah, one rule 4 has been
that
somewhat...
stuff really pisses me off. And what pisses me off about it the most is that when we see that kind of behaviour, whether it's by politicians or whether it's by a senior leader or the exec team in an organisation, those are the people that could change the rules. So if the rule is unreasonable or unsuitable or difficult to follow, when the people who have the ability and the power and the influence to change that just go around it and don't leave it better than they found it for everyone else, that really pisses me off.
Well, absolutely. Their sense of, I suppose, commitment to the overall ethic. We talk lots about values and all those kind of statements, but realizing that they're hollowed out statements is quite a rude awakening to people. And some, of course, are still supporting such a thing because they're committed to their tribe. They're saying, you know, however badly you treat me, you're my abusive leader. But, you know,
Stockholm syndrome.
But for 4 out of 5 people that know that he did wrong and just would like him to admit it, that would be a nice start. But yeah, challenging. And then this view, I mean, we may get to it, but this sense of whether you think that the rule is a fact or whether you think the rule is there to be negotiated or ignored, and whether or not you care about the community, the group, dividing the group into how much do you think the rule is fixed, how much do you think it can change, and how much do you care about the group really is part of this. And it's okay when you're the maverick. The maverick is the person who really cares for the group, you know, really wants those deaths as low as possible, wants everybody to have, and that's why they break rules or bend rules or shape rules. But in this case,
we can put up with that. But when it's self-serving, like, I think that the equivalent of this, I don't know about the organisations that you work with, but when I think about some of the teams that I work with, I think the organisational equivalent of that has been this transformation, agile, trendy innovation stuff that everybody's been talking about for the last 10 years, as though trying something new is something new, when clearly it's just business as usual. But anyway, don't get me started on that. And they go, we need our people to be more innovative and take more risks and be agile. And they make posters and they put it on the wall and they're like, look how agile we are. But the leaders themselves are those who are clinging to the status quo and protecting their own status and essentially refusing to publicly take any risks at all. And if you don't have that visible leadership, how could you possibly mandate that from those that have everything to lose?
Well, there's the shallow and the deep here. You know, there's that thin veneer version that says, well, we're going to tell you what to do. We're going to say we're all in it together, but we don't really mean it. We're all in it together. We mean you're in the shit and we are in charge. And that's the way that we like it. And that's always a shock. I think it is particularly a shock when you know that that's not the most effective way of getting things done for the greater good.
Oh, totally. We know the prisoner's dilemma. We all just need to cooperate, follow the social contract, and then nobody gets murdered except if you're really unlucky.
Absolutely.
Is that how it goes?
Yeah, something like that. And I suppose when you know that, I mean, the reason that the world is, say, wealthier is because the world's work together more now, and there are more of us doing more things, more specialized ways, more clever people, more education. and therefore everybody is better off. But I guess if you're somebody who just wants to sit on top of that with unearned wealth, then you don't really care. And you would have done that, your ancestors or something genetically would have done that 2,000 years ago, would have sat on top of the pile and said, hey, as long as I've got slaves in the basement, that's okay. And we're hopefully talking to more of those people who do just think we are better in it together, but let's work out the best way of working, rather than I'm going to take advantage and figure out the nastiest way of fooling you so that you'll do the work for me.
I think the New Zealand equivalent this week, which hasn't been quite as bad as the Dominic Cummings saga, but we had a leadership switch in our opposition party here in New Zealand over the last week. So the leader of the opposition who's been there for 2 years, has been rolled and replaced by a new one. And as happens when you get a new party leader, they've put in a new caucus and a new shadow caucus. So they've got a new wee gang around them. And it is a very, very white, very, very upper middle class caucus. And so there was some criticism from the left and from the general media about the lack of diversity in that caucus. And I'll send, for anyone who hasn't seen Shane Jones' speech in Parliament, you absolutely should. They'll post a link on my LinkedIn. But there was, they tried desperately to pretend they did have diversity and failed miserably by actually incorrectly labelling one of their senior ministers as Māori when he, in fact, was not Māori. But what was interesting is I heard the leader of the opposition on the radio a couple of days later protesting about the diversity of opinion and diversity of experience that they had. And no, you can't tell just from looking at our faces, which I've seen most accurately described in a meme that has a picture of the 12 and then it says up the top, "We'll have a mild butter chicken, please," which I thought was a really good summary of...
we have this excuse instead of... I mean, they're two different things anyway. And they get conflated in sometimes just genuine confusion and occasionally, and sometimes clearly just being used. The reason, one's equality. It's our world, we're all on it, and we should all be able to take equal part in it. And the other one is diversity, saying, well, the reason that and if it's played wrongly, I think, it comes out as, the reason that we want somebody who's non-white on our board is because we have non-white customers. And so we want your non-white view so that we can sell more stuff to non-white people. And the reason we want a woman on the board is because we sell to women. So, you know, a woman might have a view. So every time we want a woman's view, we'll turn
I don't get it.
Hey, Alicia, what's the view of the women? Can you talk for all the women?
Yes, women. Yes, women. Thank you for inviting me in as the women's representative.
Right?
It's just mad. And following on from that, and I'm definitely not looking to get political on my LinkedIn, but the justification for why there was a lack of racial diversity in the senior ministers was, well, we're not chasing the Māori vote anyway. And you just kind of go, oh, yeah, because that's the only reason that you would actually have diversity of perspective and culture. And anyway, something I've been thinking about this week that I wanted to talk to you about, I just see we've got a comment from Juhi saying, as a British Indian, the mild butter chicken comment is spot on.
Well, what we should ask Juhi, was she saying that that's a false diversity? I guess that was, hopefully, I think that was her point. Yeah, that I'm a little bit different here. So equality on the one hand,
just diverging from the mean.
Because do you remember we said last time, we're assuming that the kind of person who tune into this is clever enough and maybe nice enough. It's pretty unlikely that we've got bad people tuning in.
No, they're all wonderful. I know you're all wonderful, all of you.
So you know, we do have to say together, look, we want genuine equality and we will use our power to achieve it. If you're a HR director, the fabulous thing there is you've wheedled your way up to the top, the top, and you can set the policies. And every time you put a policy, you don't even have to do it explicitly. You can put a proper dollop of, but does it equal equality? You can do that. And stop referring to people as BAM or BAME. I mean, it's just so insulting. The person is a person.
But I find really hard about that.
Yeah.
About that diversity of opinion thing is that it's just if you look at the data, it's just categorically incorrect. So decision quality improves when you have genuine diversity, not controlling for anything else. So if you introduce race, gender, class, and geography and age, and you get that diversity in a room, irrespective of your context or your circumstance, you get better outcome. Like every time you add a different layer of diversity, there is a data set that shows that you get an additional layer or likelihood of better decision quality. And so the idea that you can somehow simulate diversity of experience or perspective by just taking 12 people who are basically the same but one went to a different school really rubs me up the wrong way.
Or that it's the same thing. I mean, I know we're repeating, but it's just so important. You can have equality low and high, and you can have diversity low and high, and they're not the same thing. And of course, what we would want is high diversity and use of that diversity and high quality. But I got to say, if I was going to choose one, I'd choose high quality, because high quality benefits more people than just saying, hey, we got a better brainstorm because we had, somebody from each category in the room. That's not why they're in the room. They should be in the room because it's equal. And if it's equal, then there's an equal chance of everybody being there.
I mean, yes, but no. So also, well, yes, but no, because actually that argument's used a lot to justify why we shouldn't, for example, make special consideration for disadvantaged groups to participate in the political process or as a part of an employment process, and go, no, it's on merit. And what we're blind to when we decide that is actually what we consider to be merit is what we consider to be familiarity, and what we consider to be excellence is what's shaped by our own experience. And so it's driven by the dominant perspective. When we talk about no, but it's driving equality of outcomes, how can you know that unless you're actually testing that with people who don't agree and don't share the same privilege and dominance that you do?
Well, I guess that's why it's not just we think the system is equal to lead to equality. It's does it lead to equality? And if it doesn't,
and how can we know?
We need to rig it again. If you don't have equal, especially if you're a larger company, if you don't have equal male and female employees, but what that means is your system didn't pick up equally talent. And what's worse as a business is not only is that unfair, I think you're leaving talent on the floor. You're leaving talent pushed out, because men and women are equally intelligent, and people of different hues and different religions and different nationalities are of equal talent and intelligence. And therefore you're leaving, if you basically don't have those people with you, you've left the talent on the table. And if you pick it up, you go, wow, look at all that creativity that we didn't use before, all that commitment, all that resilience, or all that talent. So yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I think the argument, just thinking about it's based on merit and it just happened to be this way and it would be tokenism to do anything else, is, so you genuinely believe then that it's just an accident. It's just an accident. Or it's just what it is, that there are no women at the table, or that there are nobody of different age, or different race, or different gender at the table.
Yeah, if you're in Iceland, you'd have a board would have 50% women, 50% men. If you're in the FTSE 100, they don't even have, not even every company has one person. And so I guess Stuart is saying, of course, diversity isn't just about race, sex, age. It's about different perspectives. And maybe he just joined us. It's not just those things, no. But equality says we want a full range, maybe representation, I don't know. We want a full range of people here. And if we don't, there's something wrong in the system.
What bothers me about the diversity conversation is when we make out like it's a compromise, like you're doing something nice by including different perspectives in the room. Like, this isn't a compromise, it's a value add. Like, it's not like, we were going to make a good decision, but we'll bring in diversity because that's the thing we should do and it might work out better. It's like, no, this is desirable. This is creating additional value. It's driving creativity. It's driving inclusiveness and equality and all those things that we want. That's a great thing. We should be searching for it. We're blind to our own crap.
And if you flip it, you get from, why wouldn't you want everybody to be part?
Right.
Why wouldn't you want everyone to be part? And that could be, as you say, oh, it's just luck, oh, it's just the way it happened, or women don't like this area of business, or or the best person would have got the job, but we didn't. And then you say, yes, but something went wrong because
something's wrong in the system. We
have
a responsibility to do different.
That's the one I go with. Is it would be wrong. It would be morally wrong to do that, to not include everybody, and to do. If you don't have enough people that represent that group, then pay for the apprenticeship. Go and find people. Find out what you don't know. Don't just accept that it's convenient to you to be lazy.
Okay, and coming back to this kind of parallel we drew before about kind of politicians saying one thing and expecting another of their population, and senior leaders asking something of their employees and then behaving differently. I think what links that together and the diversity conversation is actually that it's scary to have diversity, and it's scary to share power, and it feels like loss. And if we don't reframe diversity and innovation and creativity and new and transformation as something that adds value rather than something that feels like loss, we're never going to get there. So if you've got a politician who's like, well, I can't stay home because I would be losing personal freedom rather than I would be contributing to the collective good. Or if you've got a chief executive who's like, well, I can't publicly fail or take a risk on this because I might lose out either by my credibility or my performance results. When that feels like loss, it's very difficult to actually walk the talk. And I think it's the same with diversity, that really inherently it feels like you might lose a bit of your own standing. Equality feels like oppression to those who have always been dominant, right?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up lots of different things there. Is there a benefit? Is there a loss? No, I like it because there's one is, do I lose something personally? So if I have been dominant, then in a sense, you have introduced more competition by being fairer. I mean, in fact, so if you are talking male-female, then you're saying by introducing female people into the boardroom, then there's more competition. So I might lose. I mean, that's a fact. But you have to somehow, I think, carrot, stick, whatever, you have to show people how to make the argument and how this is an advantage. And then at the same time, you have to make sure it happens anyway. Like, it doesn't matter whether or not I can convince you not to be racist. I can still ensure that you behave right towards somebody else.
Exactly. And this is the difference between incentivizing behavior and just creating rules, which I'm a big fan of, right? Which is just, oh, we want people to collaborate and we want people to be agile and we want people to seek diversity and be fair. And that will happen because they're good people and we've got values on the wall. No, do you know what? If you want diversity, put it in your hiring policy that you need to have accurate representation. If you want collaboration, force people to share cost codes and have their performance assessed by the way that they work across business units. If you want, just make the rule and the behavior will happen.
And there's two interesting things to me. All the research evidence suggests that when the companies that get this right are more successful.
They do better. The purpose-driven ones, they do better, right? On
average, obviously. But there's two reasons, I think, for that. One is that they genuinely bring in talent. They have a better, bigger brain with more parts. Not just one version of a brain, lots of different brains working together. That's one. So more talent. And then secondly, of course, the thinking that leads you to making that decision is smarter and more enlightened. Fact.
That's right.
You have thought it through better because you've said, why don't we have equality? And you've asked all those whys, just like quality. You need total equality management. You say, why don't we have those people?
Ooh, total equality management. Yeah. I like that.
And why didn't they apply? Because there weren't enough. And why weren't there enough? Because nobody went to university or something, or the training. Why didn't they? Because of. And you go right back. I have a client and they've gone all the way back, and now they are paying for the bursaries right at the bottom for the kind of people they weren't attracting because they didn't apply, because they didn't have the qualifications, because they'd never thought of a career. Almost
it's strategy 101, right? Like, ask the 5 whys until you find the real problem. And once you get to the heart of it, try and work there.
Yeah. If the equal sign, if the equals is wrong, then the formula was wrong. Go back to the formula and change it. Don't just say it's luck or strategy. We keep saying luck or strategy, choose.
And what I like about that approach to solving problems as well is that it sucks a lot of the personal attack and sense of loss out of it, right? So when we think about, so a really basic example I've got that's not at all as important and interesting as class and diversity inside organizations, but I work a lot with internal functions like IT teams. And they always start off at the people are stupid or evil, what I call the people are stupid or evil mentality, right? Where you go, we've put this new system in, we've made it very clear, and people aren't picking it up. What is wrong with people? Yep. And then you do your 5 whys, right? So you're like, why isn't anybody using the new conferencing software? We've created very good laminated instructions and put them in the meeting room. Maybe we need more laminated instructions. Oh, because it's actually really difficult to use. Because the software doesn't align.
I was only laughing at laminated instructions.
This is an actual example. Well, actually the software that they want to use doesn't line up with the software of our main stakeholder, which is who we have video conferencing with. Oh, why is that? Oh, well, because when we did our procurement for a solution for this conferencing software, we were locked into a multi-year contract with a big provider. Oh, why is that? Oh, because the way that we do procurement, we think we're after good short-term costs, but all of our policies constrain us. Oh, hold on. This is a procurement policy problem, not a people don't use software problem. And it only took us 3 whys to get there. How do we change that? How do we drive different commercial thinking in the way that we have supply relationships? And if you don't just dig the tiniest little bit, you can't get there. But once you get there, it's not a you and I a stupid or evil problem anymore. It's there are structural or systematic or root causes that we should take a look at, and the diversity conversation is the same, right?
I mean, as far as you can take it, yes. So it's kind of like cancer is not morally evil, but it is bad. So I can kind of take you that far. So racism. There's a great book which I'd advise anyone to read called Anti-Racist, or How to Be an Anti-Racist. And I love that switch. And what he's arguing is, look, he's got lots of problems. He's an American, he's black American, and he's saying it's not enough just to not be the problem. You have to be part of the solution. And so it's not enough to be not sexist and think you should get marks for that. You should actually say, look, I want to be an anti. What am I going to do to change this equal sign, even though it doesn't affect me as such? And that means, not complaining, but also being part of the solution. So yeah, that strategy.
I'm currently reading Why I Don't Talk to White People About Race Anymore. Have you read that?
Yeah.
It's really good. I'm reading that at the moment. But what I like about that idea is that when you think about problem solving, it's like you're all like crowding around together looking down at the problem like, well, look at this. Bloody hell. Something's not working here. And it's not, I'm a discriminative, awful, biased, sexist human. It's, this is weird. We've got this thing here. Can you have a look at this? Oh, shit. Yeah, we'll look at it from the other angle. That is a bit of an interesting problem. And it just takes all the personal out of it when you just get to look at problems together.
Stuart just mentioned something that's useful here. I was thinking the model of resisting forces and driving forces. Clearly it's an established model, but it's in the strategy canvas, the quick strategy canvas. And that's because right at the heart of any strategy is not just working out where you are and where you want to get to and what you have to do to get there. It's what is driving you towards that point and what's stopping you. Yeah. And that can seem really simple, and it is really simple, but I keep mentioning equal sign. You want a more equal world. You want more representation. You want more diversity. You have to say, well, what's driving me to that? Public opinion, my own sense of fairness, your argument about creativity, some financial penalty, but what's stopping us? And that is whatever is stopping us. Well, there is some inherent racism in our organization, or sexism, or whatever it is. There's prejudice, or there is the hiring, or there is the lack of talent coming through, or when people come, they're feeling uncomfortable for being there, or we make assumptions about the names. So take those photos off, for God's sake. Review CVs based on just what's in them, not on the name. Take the names off, take the photo. I mean, what a thing. Send me your photo so I can decide whether you're one of me. And even if I didn't do that deliberately, It's in there. So it is really, and the clever strategist can be as moral and as good. It's not about being Machiavellian. It's about saying, what is the change I wish to see in the world? That kind of idea, but not just how can I be that change? How can I make that change? And you need to understand.
How can I overcome, thinking about I love this, that which is stronger, the action force or the resistance force? Make this one stronger and you'll get, I love that.
Look, we're timed. It's like a
hang on, if you take one first, and
that one.
Other one, and then it's like that. Look, that was quite good. What I really like about that idea is that it's kind of going, how do I trick myself? Because this is what I think about a lot with anything that we do that's good. Relying on a sense of knowledge or morality or willpower is, it's an exhaustible resource. So that's not smart. So what we need to do is find a way to make it the easiest thing for us to do the right thing by accepting that we don't always have enough internal force to keep driving against the resistance. So how do we set that up? And the basic systems version of that is, oh shit, I'm trying not to eat junk food. I'm going to take junk food out of my house. And then, like you've said, hey, I recognize that I've got a bias that's not totally clear to me that I don't always see, but I can control for that by taking names and faces off CVs, because I don't want to feel like this, but clearly the evidence is that I might. So let me just take action to make it easier not to.
Because you can't if it's not there. You can't make any judgment.
Exactly. So let's
there are some really good prejudice tests online. You can try them. I mean, it's not true that everybody is prejudiced. What's true, though, is that there is a distribution of prejudice, and you'll be on there somewhere.
Totally. And you're like, hey, I recognize people have a familiarity bias. That's cool. I'll just override that. I'll set up my system so that I've overridden that. And what I really like about that is, instead of thinking of action and resistance as a constant grind, like, am I taking enough action? Am I doing enough things? Have I started enough new stuff? It's like, have I done things to create the momentum that drives, like, just keeps moving against the resistance, even when I get out of bed and I can't?
Yeah, because new habits die easy, old habits die hard. So you have to, if it's not the thing you were doing all the time, so the situation as is, especially if it's been there for a few years, is of course likely to be the one that has proper inertia, that just sits there. That's the way things are. And you need to redivert energy, as you're describing. If you want to lose weight, if you want to exercise more, you need to put your trainers by the door. But I don't like going to a gym particularly. So I need to decide either on an exercise I like martial arts or rock climbing, or just jogging round. I jog round my kitchen and do miles and miles because I don't have to go anywhere. It's easy. I can talk to you. But make it as easy as possible. It is good advice, but understand change to make change as well. The more you understand it, because your insight there about ease is you understanding an element of change. The more you understand it, the more you can go, actually, I'm not just guessing. I can see how people change and how they don't change. I'm a bit of an expert in it, and therefore I can make a smarter decision with more of an impact.
Okay, so on the point of taking action and thinking about, right, I've got a new direction that I want to head in. I've got something I want to do. What I see a lot, and I've been thinking about a lot this week, is this kind of action paralysis, right? Where it's like, okay, I want to do the new thing. COVID's just happened. I get to do everything digital now. I've got this burning platform in front of me for organizational transformation. I can think of 55 different things that I could do to take action. I might start 20 of them and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's this, how do I direct the energy thing? And I'm seeing people just totally overwhelmed and stuck.
So there's a range of things you're saying. So that one's about, I've taken on 20 opportunities because I saw 20 opportunities. Is that one? And then what? That now I'm doing too much?
Yeah, or worse, I can see 20 opportunities. I feel like I should be doing all of them. And so I will do none because it's all a bit paralyzing.
Because you've only got a little bit of each. Yeah. I mean, that sense, I think, of being overwhelmed by choice, or then if you took on the projects, being overwhelmed by the work, either way. That's definitely at both the emotional and practical side for me. And there it's about, of course, choice and drawing them up. That's why I did strategy canvas, because what you do is you say, well, here are some things I could do, and you list them as tasks. You say, well, here's the stuff in the middle of this I could do. And then you look at what your desired end was, and you try to draw a line between the action and the desired end. And you say, well, does that get me there? And which one gets me there best? Can I do them all? And if I can't, then they're ordered, and you put the other ones to one side. You do a little post-it note process. So you don't have to abandon them, but you do know how they link to your eventual target. Because, of course, you can't do infinite things.
I really like the distinction between overwhelmed by work or overwhelmed by choice. And I think it's useful to know which of those things you're overwhelmed by when you're overwhelmed by guilt, because women.
Well, emotion generally, Alicia, so there's if it was emotion, you can use the stress clock, and you say, look, if you have no stress, no pressure on you, then you don't do anything. Yeah. And if you have too much, you become overwhelmed, and then you just collapse and you hide under your bed or, wherever your hiding place, or in the bottom of a bottle, wherever it is. There is a key place. So what was that?
In the pantry, hiding from your children, eating chocolate. I don't know.
But who doesn't? Everybody's got a hiding place. Some people's hiding place is anger, and some people it's food. Some people it's the garden. Some people it's a party. Some people it's gossip. Everybody's got one. Or two or three, and there's nothing wrong with that, but when you find yourself going there, you can say, but what's driven me to this point? Am I overstressed? And if I am, you got to dial it back. So that's the emotional regulation side that really is important. Get better at that. Become an expert in you. Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? What is driving, is it a resources depleted issue, or is it an external pressure issue? Which is it? That's definitely the emotional side. But then there's
that.
Yeah.
So because there's like the personal emotional regulation. How am I showing up, and what's driving this? And then if we think about the other conversations we've had this morning, there's almost like a team or a cultural emotional temperature check, where it's like, what are we driven by here? Are we scared? Are we overwhelmed? Are we guilty? Do we fear change? Do we fear loss? What's the emotional tone that's sitting underneath the decisions?
What's driving me? What's stopping me? What's driving me? What's stopping me? And you can use it for very sophisticated analysis. And that's why I think always strategy is simple but complex. So you can do it. And that's why I love it. You can do it straight away and say, well, the reason I'm not doing this is because I am afraid of failure, or because I just don't know, or maybe it's practical, as in, I don't know how to do it. I mean, if you know how to do a thing, you're not often as afraid. But if it's vague and you don't know, and then you take little micro steps, micro tasks, I call them, micro tasks to make yourself feel more confident. You go, well, I can't do all of it, but I can look up the term on the web.
It's the MVP, right? So thinking about this overall idea of our conversation today, which is if you want to make change happen, then the force of moving forward, the force of action has to be stronger than the resisting force. And I think there's a couple of things that sit inside that. One of them is ease. The other is awareness. And I think the overriding thing really that we've talked about is that if you don't have a strong enough sense of purpose or end goal or outcome, if you're not clear enough and you don't really know why you're doing it, then you're highly unlikely to be able to put enough energy into that force of propelling change. And so if you're not linked into, like we've talked about, companies with purpose, and you go, well, yeah, they're great, but only because they really genuinely believed in it, and that was enough to push them forward enough to work like that. And diversity and equality and strategy and change and transformation, it's all, if it's true everywhere, right? Which is, if you want to have enough energy into your moving forward force, there has to be clarity of why, or why bother.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally agreeing with that. So, the clarity and the purpose and the true everywhere. But there's also, I'm very much an it depends person as well. So
those are my favourite people. Just give me the answer. Yeah. Well, it depends. Yeah, it always depends, but give me the answer.
Well, that is why there are 5 or 6 or 7 questions in this really simple model, which I'm not selling to anybody. But what I am doing is sharing, because I'm saying maybe you only know where you are, Alicia. Maybe you only know that. You just know where you are and you can take an inventory. That's it. Or maybe you know what you're doing, or what you think you'd like to do a bit, like you were saying, 20 options. Or maybe you really do know where you want to go. And what I've seen is evidence that people get to wonderful places from any of those questions. And
so this is the, what's the phrase? The science of muddling through?
Yeah,
the science of muddling through, yeah.
That's why the Sinek stuff of just assuming that you have to have a better purpose or a better why than the next person, or one clarity. It is nice to think that that's going to work every time. The guy that did he looked at the genome and mapped the first genome of a creature, and eventually he went on to map the human genome. And he was a British guy. I mean, clearly it was a huge effort, worldwide effort. But the first job he actually did was to map the genome of a worm. And it's a really simple worm. And he only did it because he was looking for a research job. And his ex-boss said, why don't you come and do this? And he did it. And it had no why other than earning some money. But it led to something great. So I think people don't have to, they can start from where they are. And then keep in mind what this could add up to. That I might find added purpose. I might go somewhere good. Somebody might listen.
That luck strategy situation again, isn't it? A bit of intelligent opportunism combined with a bit of drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people should remember that, because when they get hung up on, I don't know, Agile, you mentioned, as a methodology. So Agile is a methodology. It's about 20 years old, and it came about because of dissatisfaction with the previous methodology. And originally it was just a manifesto from some clever people in programming who said, surely there's got to be a way of doing this without all these rules and all this training. And over 20 years, it's turned into what it originally didn't want to be. With people
agile training and then embed a methodology.
And telling you that you're doing Agile wrong, Max, you're doing it. And I'm going, I was there before we started. So don't confuse sometimes these two. And so Stuart's saying, of course, there's accidents, but there's also just the prepared mind, noticing, so that your greatest opportunities will come as strategic responses to the unplanned. You didn't know it was going to happen, but because you were thinking about yourself and how you worked and what you wanted to accomplish and what you could accomplish, when it happens, you go, your mind makes the connection for you.
Oh, I've got something for this. Yep, here it is. I prepared this one earlier.
You went, oh, I like that, and you'll probably be doing it somewhere. You've picked that up and you'll copy it. So
if you're lucky, I'll do it with attribution, and I'll say, actually, I had a wonderful conversation with Dr. Max McKeown, and we talked about with strategy, the resisting and propelling forces. And if you're not lucky, I'll say, do you know, I often like to think about it like this.
I've got a guy who's he's writing some posts about my book, and one post he'll acknowledge where it came from, and the next post he won't. But that's humans, we're copying animals, and there's nothing wrong.
It's not like any of our ideas just appeared out of our heads.
Yeah, we're copying animals. I got that from somewhere, and I'm passing it on, and I do a little bit of my version. But I think everything that we've said that's driving forces. I mean, two really key points I still think are that the equality, diversity, fairness, the world that we want to see, can be strategically pursued.
Yes.
That's really important. To have one term like an anti-racist or an anti-sexist sets you on the other side of it. It gives you momentum because you know what you are and what you're for. I've got to stick up for you now because I'm anti-sexist. I'm not just not sexist.
Yeah.
And
I really like it.
I have to do something actively. Otherwise, when I look at it, I say, well, my desirable end is a fair world. What am I going to do to get there? I'm going to be anti-racist. What am I doing about that? How am I making it work? What's driving? What's resisting? And you can use
the right things can be strategically pursued. That is great.
Yeah, and they always are. They always are. And it's not enough just to be angry. It's not enough just to be angry. You have to, or sad. I am angry and sad about the state of a lot of things in the world.
Yeah. Now tap into that with your prepared mind and strategically pursue it. That is great.
Absolutely. That Rosa Parks was not on that bus by accident. She was on that bus.
She wasn't.
There was a strategy behind it, and the strategy, fortunately, took a little step forward.
This has been fantastic, as always. I love talking to you. I'm glad we're friends. I'm still disappointed that we're not able to drink during this, but maybe next week I'm just going to make irresponsible choices.
You've got a mini bar, haven't you? Have you not got a mini bar?
Got a cup of tea.
Next time, at least have a miniature. Next week.
Just a little mimosa to start the day. Yeah, this was fantastic. We love getting all of your questions and comments through, and as you watch the recording, we come back through and read all the amazing stuff that you've got to say. So thank you for joining us today and for all of your contributions. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And we will see you all next Thursday at 9 a.m. New Zealand time. Bye.
Bye.
And